Of course, the day after I post a video that was titled something like Everything You Need to Know About the Z Fold 6, new news would pop up that I'm going to have to cover that I really wish I could have just had in that original video, but here we are. It is what it is. I made that video, and that, of course, does manifest new news to appear just to make life harder for me. Today, we're going to be looking at some new stuff about the Z Fold 6. It adds some really important context to some of the stuff we had earlier about the Z Fold 6. So we're talking about those CAD-based renders that came out via OnLeaks, if I'm not mistaken. Alongside those were some very precise measurements for the Z Fold 6. And if you take those very precise measurements and you plug them into comparesizes.com, you get something like this. We have the Z Fold 5 in sort of a yellowish, goldish color. The Z Fold 6, would you call that maybe teal or something like that? Blue is the OnePlus Open, and then gray is the Pixel Fold. And if we go kind of top down, you can see here that the Z Fold 6 is very, very, very slightly wider than the Z Fold 5. We're talking about a difference of 132 millimeters, 129 millimeters. Okay, so 2 or 3 millimeters is a very, very small difference. A lot of people who have been looking at the Z Fold 6 maybe have wanted a wider device. Now, not necessarily a wider inner screen, although looking at the OnePlus Open, you can see that that's going to be just fine for most people. They want a wider cover display. If we do the exact same thing we just did, but with the cover display, this is what we get. Again, Fold 5 up front, and then the Fold 6 just behind it. And the Fold 6 is going to be slightly shorter than the Fold 5. But again, looking at the width when it's folded over, you're talking about a difference of 2 or 3 millimeters, but now you've folded it over, you've done something like halving it. So now the difference is almost completely gone. 67.1 millimeters, 67.57 millimeters. It is like a half of a millimeter difference whenever the thing is fully folded up. A lot of people saw that and thought, this is unbelievable. They're sticking with the same super skinny cover display. We have the Pixel Fold in red behind it. You can see it emerges from either side. And then the OnePlus Open from this side, you can see also is still quite a bit wider than those devices, while not being as wide as the Pixel Fold. But I mentioned there was some new stuff today, and that's what we need to talk about, because you can't just take the raw measurements of the device itself and get the cover display width, because these devices have an area to the left side where the hinge is, and that's not screen. So presumably the device's hardware could stay about the same, but that hinge area could be shrunk down and you could get a larger, wider screen. Let's take a look at this tweet from Ice Universe, and I think that that shows that pretty well. What he has here is a couple of screen protectors, the Fold 5 on the right, the Fold 6 on the left, and here we have a full, let's just call it 3 millimeters difference, instead of being almost completely identical. And that is, again, I'm assuming because that hinge area has been minimized, shrunk down on the Fold 6. And when you have these two side by side, I think that you can tell that is a more substantial difference than I think a lot of us were anticipating. I pop off the front of my OnePlus Open screen protector. I think that you can look at that and see that's not that far off. I mean, obviously, I'd have to like really one-to-one and to get measurements and everything, and it's definitely still a little bit wider. But it's not as bad as I think a lot of us might have been thinking, given the measurements. The measurements would have told us it's going to be basically identical to the Z Fold 5. Of course, those renders that we were all looking at did make it look like it was going to be wider, but it was hard to justify that with the measurements alone. Having the screen protector does push us back in that direction. This is a step in the right direction for Samsung. Now look, I understand that when we look at this device and we think about the fact that the charging is staying probably the same, the battery size is apparently staying the same, the camera setup has not changed in a little while, and apparently it is still not going to be changing. So much of this stuff is just staying the same. Lots of people I've seen in my comments saying Samsung appears to just be absolutely coasting. This device is going to be a boring iterative release. I absolutely get that. But we have another post by a case maker called Thinborn, which actually, this is a Thinborn case on my Pixel 8 Pro here. So I'm actually a fan of their aramid fiber cases. So that's interesting. They have since deleted the tweet, but this was the image that apparently they tweeted out showing the render, not really a render, but the CAD file, the measurements of what they had for the Z Fold 6 as well, lining up with what OnLeaks had as well. This device is going to look very, very different from the Fold 5, Fold 4 on and on, because they're going with this S24 Ultra style boxier layout. Personally, I like the look of it, and I have the Fold 4. I have the Fold 4. It's somewhere in the house. Maybe it's in the little tech closet over there, but I had the Fold 4. I did not buy the Fold 5 because there was just nothing about it that really changed. It folded flat, which is cool, but that wasn't a big enough thing for me to spend $1,800. I knew I was going to buy the Pixel Fold and probably the OnePlus Open as well, so you got to budget things, right? I'm not made of money, and unfortunately, Samsung does not send me phones to review just yet, so I have to decide how I'm going to spend my money. This Fold 6, I got to admit, it's a little bit tempting for me because I would get the benefit of everything from the Fold 5 on top of this, but the fact that it does fold flat, the fact that that cover display is a little bit wider, the fact that you get that boxier look, which I really do appreciate, I get it. I get that it's not super exciting, but for those of us that maybe have waited, or for those of us that are just now jumping in, you think about all the stuff that's been slowly added, and I'm really curious to see if they talk about this Iron Flex patent, if the ultra-thin glass is indeed more durable. I'm thinking this thing might end up being pretty decent, right? Like the S24 was said to be a pretty boring iterative release as well, and this last year it was the best-selling non-iPhone phone apparently around. So could Samsung have similar success with the Z Fold 6? I think it's possible. You could definitely say, though, it's less of an upgrade than the 24 was. And of course, they do have stiffening competition from the likes of OnePlus and Google as well. But it's going to be really interesting regardless. They're also going to lean heavily on AI stuff as well. This is going to be, probably the first AI branded foldable device to be released also. So again, that's kind of the new little tidbit here. We've had the measurements, but now we have something a bit deeper. We have screen protectors that should show you a bit more directly what that comparison is going to be like. And it's better than I think a lot of us thought it was going to be. So guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this. Drop some comments down below. Tell me what you think about this. Is this indeed better than you were thinking? Does this sway you one way or the other? I'd love to read those comments down there after a little while. I'm down there reading them and liking them and responding to them for a good while. So drop a comment down below, guys. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.